Yeah, we're live. How are you doing today?
Yeah, back in sunny Miami. No complaints.
How's Miami been?
I think I
Are you?
I just got back the other day. I live here, and I was visiting up north with my mom, and then I got snowed in New York. So I'm glad to be back in the good weather.
I heard it's a little bit. I heard it's a little bit warmer now. It's in the 40s, so I don't know about the snow,
Okay,
but
I got I'm in the high 70s today with perfectly clear skies. So I'm gonna pick this up.
yeah, right. How long have you lived in Miami for?
It's gonna be 2 years next month
From New
from New
York?
York. Yeah, it was one of the
Oh.
mass exodus out. So
Which one? Which one do you like better? Miami?
in New York, I love Miami. New York is home, so I can always go back, and I always do. But Miami definitely my heart is here now.
Yeah, there's cool parts.
Yeah.
So just to kind of get some background for everyone watching, you do breath work and some
I
coaching.
do. I am a breathwork coach. I work primarily with entrepreneurs and teams and execs to help them reduce stress, to help them improve performance, and to really reach their flow state. There are a lot of pain points, obviously, like I mentioned, entrepreneurs suffer from burnout and stress and just even imposter syndrome. And so we use the breath to really help them release those blocks and then just jump back into their day and create real action steps.
So what got you into that? Because it's funny when not funny, but it's interesting when I do these podcasts. People who have a desire to serve more people, it's always issue solution, then sharing it with other people. That's kind of the
100%.
theme I see with everybody. So I'm assuming you were in a place in your business previously where you had burnout, and you're like, hey,
Yeah.
you know, what's the solution? Then you started looking for answers, right?
Very solution oriented person, period. I am. So born and raised New Yorker. I spent about a decade working in the nightlife hospitality in New York. So I worked in numerous clubs, worked in restaurants. I helped open some space spots in Vegas. So 10 years into that, my 20s, completely burnt out. Not happy, drinking way too much, popping Adderall. I knew I needed a reset. So in 2019, I took a sabbatical. Which was like, I'm leaving New York, gonna travel the world. I settled in Southeast Asia. So I spent time in Thailand, in Vietnam, in Bali, in the Philippines, and I was just kind of doing my, eat, pray, love quest. But I was also doing a ton of yoga. So I was doing a lot of the yoga retreats, and it was in a yoga retreat in Thailand, this beautiful island called Koh Phangan, that I discovered breathwork. And of course, I saw a sign for it in like the itinerary for the day of the retreat. And I thought it was going to be like, oh, pranayama, we're going to be watching our breath, we're going to be doing yogi breathing. It was not that. It was this deep, tri-active, transformative breathing that dropped me into my body. Literally, like everything fell away. It felt like I was tripping, and it brought me face to face with my mom, because the facilitator was saying, visualize your mom, visualize your mom. And I had all these emotions come up about my mom, and I was actually able through the guidance to breathe it out of my body. And I just felt this immediate release. I felt this clarity. I was FaceTime my mom the next day, like crying, like, I love you. And I have so much love and compassion for you now. And then I was just hooked. I was like, this is incredible. This modality is it's one of the most healing things I've ever done. And I'm using my own breath. I don't have to take anything. I don't have to do anything. I just have to breathe through this, with a guided facilitator. And so then I signed up for like a 10-day breathwork retreat. I was like, I want to do this every day. And that's going into 2020. So what happened in 2020? The world shut down. So the world shut down in March 2020. I'm living by myself, single woman in Thailand, don't know what to do. Everyone's saying, don't come home to New York. So I just started doing breath work on my own, and it was helping me a lot with anxiety, the fear, with the doubts during Corona. And I started putting together little Zooms with my family and friends. I was like, hey guys, it's really helping me. I'd love to show you what I'm doing. And they started popping in, and it was helping. And it was obviously also helping me because I was seeing people, I'm all alone in my little apartment in Thailand. And then from that, it began to grow into community. People started to hop on. And then I had wellness, people were trying to create wellness, programs around COVID, to help people with yoga and meditation. They're like, we'd love to add breath work. So I ended up landing in LA a month later. I got certified in LA in Santa Monica, and I just started monetizing the business and working yoga studios, working wellness spaces. I did that for about 2 years in LA. And then at the end of 2020, I started to pivot into the corporate space. I was like, who can really benefit from this? Like, what's the world that I came from? And turning around and kind of I love working with high performing individuals. My business, I call it impactbreathwork.com, because I want it to create impact and to work with people who are doing that. I work with people who are doing startups in tech and AI, finance and everything, but they're actually creating impact in the world. So that's why I named it my business, and it's also what I'm putting out there into the world. I like to say that I went from like professional party girl to purpose.
Particle to purpose. Perfect. I like that. Yeah, it's interesting because like we were saying just pre-call, it's like entrepreneurs, they always have a desire to serve people, right? So it's also giving them tools and teachings to be able to serve themselves first, fill their own cup in, because you're only as good as yourself, right? So if you're stuck, you can't really be effective and help more people. So it's a cool story because I hear a lot of people too, they go out to Asia. The previous podcast I have with, I think it's mostly women that have done that. The ones that they've gone out to Asia and Thailand stuff to train, but they almost have the intention to stay there. Then their gurus or teachers are like, "Hey, now you have to go back."
Yep.
Did you
They
have that experience as well?
I didn't. So again, I didn't plan to become a breathwork coach at all. I fell in love
Yeah,
with
yeah,
the modality, and then it kind of was this like juxtaposition of COVID happening, and then me it becoming like my source of peace and calm, and then me wanting to share that, and then realizing, wow, I can do this, for as a purpose. Like if it just feels like there's no better feeling that for me than coaching. There's no better feeling for me
yeah,
than getting off a call or leaving a session with a client and just seeing how clear they are, how happy they are, how they've gotten to this other side of whatever they couldn't connect. But yeah, definitely. Yeah, I had an amazing teacher actually out in Thailand. She's a bit of a Taoist, very like woo woo. So that was cool because I got the spiritual kind of side of breath work, understanding what was happening, on a soul level. But coming back to the States, I was like, what is actually happening scientifically in my biologically, physiologically in my body? And so I got the certification. So we can talk about that. I can tell you what is actually happening in your body. I can tell you how we're going to integrate. I can tell you why you get really good sleep after breath work, why you get all the tingles and the sensations in your session. So yeah.
yeah. It's funny you say that because like when I became a healer and guide, I had no intention of doing that. But it's like it's one step at a time, and once you get the results, you're like, oh, this is really cool. I figured something out, and that inspires you to share it. But like when I first was doing like walking down my spiritual path, it's really I think just anybody, it's they just want to figure out, they want to get out of suffering, they want to get out of stress. That's the first desire. But then once you have the results, you're like, well, what's next? And the next step is always sharing that with more
Mhm.
people. And like you said, it's like the fulfillment is, hey, I solved my own problem. Now I'm going to solve your problems. And through that, it just, creates deeper bonds and relationships. And I think that's the best thing of life. That's where you get a lot of fulfillment out of life, is serving others,
100%.
because, right. It's like the best relationships are the ones that aren't necessarily, they're not, there's a difference between kind of like fun, entertaining relationships and like service relationships. And I think the service relationships, when you're able to offer value to that person, those are the best,
Yeah.
deepest relationships.
Yeah.
So I tell everybody, it's like if you want a better life, like figure out a way to help people.
100%. I think being of service is everyone's purpose, and everyone has a trait, a skill, something unique about themselves that they can give into the world, and when they're living in alignment with that, you're happy. You're good. Everything's connecting.
Yeah.
Life is flowing. You're manifesting. So, yeah, definitely being of service is the highest purpose.
Yeah, it's like, what's happening when you're doing, whether it's different tools, breathwork rituals, different spiritual studies, is you're learning how to self actualize, but move energy, right? All the stress and all the pent up stuff. So when we're talking about going back to your mom and whatever they guide you through there, it's all, hey, where are the blockages? So we can remove those so you can flow the energy, you can be more in alignment with yourself and, be more effective to ultimately serve more people,
Yeah,
right?
100%. And so much.
I think,
Oh, sorry, go ahead. So much of it is subconscious. You think I'm fine, whatever, I can take this pill, I'm good. I forgave my mom. Well, no. When you go inward to do the work, you realize no, there all these blocks are still there. Right. So we find the modalities, the way to get them out. And obviously I've pinned breath work as mine, but there are like meditation, everybody, I'm sure you talk about meditation. We all practice meditation. Really is the key to that inner peace we're all seeking.
yeah, in Hermetics, we have, I don't know if anybody can see it over here, we have mentalism. The first hermetic principle, because if you can't control your mind, you can't control any other part of yourself too, right? So it's why meditation, breath work, these are, they're really, I mean, I used to kind of see them as way too simple, so I would always almost write them off, like, how can that be so simple and work? And I think a lot of people that are trying to progress, I see them do the same thing, right? Because they're looking for this magic pill, this big answer. They're looking for something that really shakes them. A lot of people are looking for like the psychedelics, and they're going doing like ayahuasca and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And it's never really that, because all it's going to do is, I think I was talking to somebody, I was taking a walk the other day, and we were talking about all this stuff and like why people seek out these like crazy things. And
Mhm.
it's like, it's because they have the voice in their head that they're not listening to. And they think, oh, if I go do this radical thing, it's going to really shift me. I'm going to have this crazy, whatever, come to God moment. And all that does is puts them back to where they were. And they're like, I should have just trusted that that voice that I
Yes.
wasn't listening to, right?
Yeah, our inner
So I try to get people to skip that phase, or and just bring them back to themselves. And that's what breath work, that's what meditation, all it brings them back to their center, so they can build their strength and they can actually move forward. They can do those challenging things, they can face the things head on, because ultimately that's what's going to empower the person the most. It's not all the other
yeah,
crazy stuff. It's how to bring people, how to connect them back to themselves, make them stronger, and then have them go engage in life.
100%.
And then life become,
Yeah. It's not out or in, it's inner out, right? Your inner world will dictate your outer world. But
yeah, it's building inner stuff. It's like when we see it's easy to get caught up in the outer stuff because we see it, and that's where people get tripped up with the spiritual stuff. They're like, it's so funny when I do consultations. They're like, well, they're trying to get a one-to-one result. They're like, okay, if I pay you this, I'm going to get this, right? And I'm like, it's more like if you pay me this, you're going to get this, but you just can't see that yet because there's that gap that we're trying to bridge, right? And it's most people get caught up in that logic of, okay, I've done therapy before, I've done this, I've done that, I invested X amount and got this. And it's a very logical, limited way of thinking. It's like with the spiritual stuff, you're able to take quantum leaps and say, yeah, you did this, but that little tiny thing that you don't think is important that's stuck can create massive, massive results. Right. So it's going in there with like a fine comb and just like finding those little pieces and then like extracting that.
yeah.
And like, oh wow, like life is, I went from here to here just in a matter of like weeks, right? Yeah, I think that's one of the best things. Oh, do you do a lot of like one-on-one, or is it group in person?
So when I moved into corporate, I was working primarily with teams. So all of a sudden I'm like in companies, I'm holding, 300 people Zooms over Zoom with like Slack, and I worked with YPO and I worked with Summit. But then as in the last few months, I started taking on the one-on-one with the higher C-suite level execs. And it's been really fun because I get to curate sessions around corporate uh, settings, like a flow state breath work or a heart-led leadership breath work, or that investor call breath work. Yeah, it's I enjoy it a lot because I see these people that are just like high performing, super stressed, able to just take 20-25 minutes of their day to just drop into their theta state and figure stuff out. Like just that calm, like that 20 minutes in your entire crazy busy day where your mind isn't just going, 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 and you're just in your body. And it's a beautiful thing to see. Everybody always comes out of it like blown away or like super, super aligned with whatever action they need to take next. And that's why I curate these sessions this way.
And how does it typically work for your sessions? Do you usually do the groups first, or are you working with like the leaders first? I found for me, it's always easy to work with the leader first and have their experience, because then it trickles down. They
Yeah.
can share it with their group.
Yeah. A lot of times it's through head of people. It's like the head of HR. It's HR has experience. It's like, this would be amazing for the employees. We want to bring this into our corporate wellness program. So that as well. But yeah, a lot of time it does kind of trickle down because the leader will experience it and then want it for their team. That's a beautiful thing.
And then what kind of like shifts as far as the team? Do they build this into like be a consistent thing for like HR? They say, hey, every
Yeah.
week
So I
or
have
what?
several packages, to kind of do the first one. It's a 45 minute session with the team. And then building off of that would be a month, or then a quarterly, going in quarterly and, leading a breathwork session. And then they have access to the recordings. People do reach out to me via those outlets of like, hey, I'd love to learn more. Maybe we can drop in. And I've been able to help people that way on that private one-on-one coaching.
What about Miami? Miami is always funny when, if you say spiritual Miami, it's such a broad thing to say.
The thing is, though, you get down here, we have a massive wellness community. You can find a sound
Oh yeah,
bath, an
yeah.
ecstatic dance, a cacao ceremony almost every day. Somewhere it could be on the beach, it could be in someone's like beautiful. There's like a beautiful place here called Sacred Space that holds sound baths every single day. And I'm not just saying that's surface level. There's also really spiritual people here that are really just. I have an amazing group of people that I know that I always have like a cool event to go to, or I've hosted breathwork events through this beautiful community called Modern Gnome. They started as a yoga studio. They've built into like a 300 plus member of just, spiritual, high performing, like creative individuals in all different types of genres. We have yoga teachers, we have breathwork facilitators, we have the sound healers, we have ayahuasca ceremony, the shamans. So yeah, definitely
Anti.
Miami does not resonate with spiritual, but like if you get down here, we have a really great wellness community.
It's cool overall. Like 5 years ago, it's a lot different, but now it's going to, I call it more like a mature spirituality where it goes back to the person, right? It's less about the drugs and that stuff. And a lot of more people are, going sober. They're not doing all the stuff. Cause like we said before, it's like all about how do you build the individual, right? And how do you, many people can get lost in this stuff because they say, oh, well, I had somebody do this, I had somebody do that. But it's like the true spiritual path is going to bring you back to yourself, connect you with God, right? And that's why you're going to be able to, and the tools are really there to clear the blockages. You're able to continuously receive and expand. And I definitely do see Miami going more in that direction. And I think people curate, like you said, like sacred spaces. Carla, she built like a beautiful place. So there's always something. I think I was walking the beach last night. There were a lot of full moon ceremonies actually.
Yeah.
Uh,
We have a lot
yeah,
of
it's
those
cool.
here too. Yeah, and it's great because you can always drop in and you can, meet people. We're always trying to just connect here. We're all about community, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think that's cool. It's like the community part, right? Because it's like once you are clear and you're feeling good, it's like what's next? People are going to be naturally inspired to connect with each other.
100%.
It's like when you're suffering and stuff, a lot of people, when they're suffering, they sort of
Yep,
isolate.
100%.
And as you grow and progress, what I've noticed is you just become better in relationships, better in community, right?
Right.
So it's cool. Like in Miami, you have all these pockets of different things, and there's Buddhism, Hinduism, like the Hermetic thing. There's breath work. There's whatever, a bunch of yoga stuff, right? So it's cool. And then those people get it. It's like they all kind of interweave and work together, in the community. How do you get? You're saying Modern Gnome. I've seen them before. How did you get connected with
Just
them?
started going to the events. At the founder, Mike, he's amazing. He's been in this Modern Gnome's been around for almost 9 years. So they're the ones that
Oh, really?
stuck. A lot of these other kind of spaces or communities or social clubs, they failed during COVID just because they couldn't, obviously shift from the offline to online. But Modern Gnome sustained, and it's getting bigger and bigger. Like I said, it's a membership as well. So everyone just comes together. There's all these beautiful member events, and it's very, very connected. You find that like everybody, you see the same people at the same events, but it's awesome because it becomes your family. It becomes your third place. Are you familiar with third place? So always says like you have your
What do you
home and
mean?
your work, and then you naturally will be inclined to have a third place. That could be a gym, that could be somewhere that you like to go, but there's also, it takes you out of the generally homework, especially because now so much of us work from home. It's really important to have that third place. I would say Modern Home is that for me.
That's well, yeah. So it's like your spiritual monad, like your family, beyond
Yeah, lovely.
your day to day. That's awesome. And then we're talking about stress and entrepreneurs that have a lot of like stress and stuff, but what are some core things beyond just like the stress? What do you see causes the stress, number one?
Limiting beliefs. Like when I take people through sessions, when I go through a session, things that I think are like, this is the thing that's causing me stress. Breathwork helps me drop into the root of whatever that is, whether it's an emotion, whether it's a story I'm telling myself. It allows me to be like, hey, like, oh, I'm really nervous about calling this person or this, like a client or, doing the sale. And if I drop into my breathwork, I'll go, well, where's that coming from? That's that little girl that's, scared. And using that to take
Yeah,
that
so that's
feeling, that belief out of my system because I'm crushing it. I love what I do. I'm always, attracting the dream clients. I'm very aligned with my purpose, but those limited beliefs will come out, and obviously you can see how that manifests on a bigger scale with people that are like running companies and changing the world. It comes down to that we have so many limiting beliefs in our subconscious mind that are put on us mainly from childhood, but also from society, from other people, from perceived notions of things we believe we need to have. And that's why this modality is so powerful. We're able to breathe those beliefs out of our body.
Yeah, it's always going back. It's never about like the surface level thing. It's always the core of it, right? Even beyond like, a lot of people get almost like stuck in the childhood stuff because they're like, oh, well, my parents this, my parents that. It's like, okay, but eventually we have to grow up
Yeah.
and just like the past is we have to, accept and heal the past. But it always goes back to the virtues that we have to further develop, right? So if it's communication or if it's trust, if it's creativity, if it's purpose, if it's love, boundaries. Those boundaries are huge for everybody, right? In
Yeah.
relationships.
Oh my goodness.
So it's always, somebody comes in with like, hey, I have this problem. I'm like, well, you think you have that problem. But it's like,
Let's go.
let's go like 3 levels deeper
Yep.
at least.
Because most
And that's where,
yeah,
what's
most
that?
things have that. The like any objection to anything, there's a surface level. You go to the root of it, you'll find that there's a reason. It's like a conscious subconscious thing. If you have a conscious goal, I want to lose weight, but your subconscious goal, like your entire life, you were told that you have to eat everything off your plate. You're always going to be incongruent. You're fighting a battle.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's always like opinions. And that's always a struggle with people getting them to grow is to have them empty their cup and be open to something new, right? Because they're operating, it's like a computer, right? We're operating on a certain software and we have to upgrade the software. And the people are like, no, they want to hold on to
Mhm.
stuff and think it has to be a certain way, or different opinions or different things we collect. And it's like, you have to be, that's where, that's where we get in our own ways of, it's like, hey, I got to let go of the old. I was doing a podcast, I think 2 weeks ago with this guy, Trey, and he said it really well. He said, what works at level 1 does not work at level 2,
Yeah, I saw that.
which is, yeah, which is very true because he became a father. He's a successful entrepreneur and he got married and had a kid pretty early on. He's been, a very successful guy. But he thought, hey, working 12-hour days that made him tons of money and worked and everything. When he became a father, he realized, well, he was still doing that for a little bit and that was where he was struggling. But as soon as he went up to the next level and did things another way, he's like, it actually became easier,
Yeah, that's
right?
when everything is connecting and aligned, you're in flow. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a willingness to, I would say with, hermetics, we have the correspondence, but it's, you have to go up to the next level to understand level 1.
Mhm.
When you're stuck at that level, when you're stuck in the kind of crap,
Mhm.
it's very clouded and you don't get to see it. So you have to elevate yourself to another level so you can actually have clarity. You can look down and say, oh, okay, this is where the path actually
Yeah.
is.
It's kind of
Right.
continuing to grow into your highest self, right? More the higher self is able to look back and be like, that's why that happened. That's why I had to go through that. You have to grow, like, what is it? Go through it, grow through it, grow through it to go through it.
Yeah. There is no like, I know a lot of people say, hey, I want to get to this level and just kind of relax and chill, whatever. Like there is no relaxing at that level. There's no stagnation because if you stagnate, then you start sliding backwards. Incorporating growth is always, that's what I mean. That's what we're here. We're here to grow, right? We're here to always expand. And the more we fight that, the more we fight ourselves, the more struggle we create in our lives, right? So it's like the flow is aligning ourselves to constantly grow and expand and learn new ways of doing things, right? Like going back to that guy, it's like, yeah, it might work for you for maybe 5 years or so. But then we have to refine it. We have to do, if we go to the next level. So that's where I see a lot of people that are stuck. Any healing is really holding on to something for too long, right? It's holding on to the, yeah. Yeah, if you talk to somebody that's not doing well, it's like, what do they usually talk about? They usually talk about things that happened 10, 20, possibly 40, 50
Mhm.
years ago, right? So it's that stuck energy. That's why breath work and stuff is good to kind of come in and blow it out and release it.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
Like,
okay,
it's, you
cool.
have to heal the past to move on. You do. And a lot of it is the letting go of it. And I'm sure you're familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza. He talks about all of that. Like, that becomes your programming, and then that becomes your personality. And then now you're just a person that's just always angry about maybe like a breakup from 10 years ago. You're bringing that into your present all the time, and your body's still feeling it, right? It doesn't know the difference
Yeah.
between it not then and now happening. And so, yeah, and you have to release those things. You have to release those things to really up level.
Yeah. It's all thoughts, feelings, actions. A lot of people get stuck in their thoughts and opinions
Yeah.
and feel the same way because they don't know how to feel another way. That's why, doing things when you're shifting your state, such as breath work, it's taking you from a place of what you're familiar with to something new that feels better. When you feel better, you do better, right? So it's always, one is the mind, two is the state, three is the action, right? So, but if people, that's why people, I call it a spiritual path, sometimes psychological suicide, because because we fight. It's like, oh, it has to be this way. It has to be this way. And better's right in front of you, but we can't see it, right? So it's sacrificing the norm or the comfort for something better, and that's where people get. That's that bridge the gap we have to bridge, is because people want to fight and scratch and hold on to the. But you've seen this in relationships. It's like people they'll take a terrible relationship and hold on to it because it feels normal and comfortable. They know it's hurting them, but they don't have that power to leave it, to better it, to shift it in some way. So they settle and they say, okay, well,
Yeah.
I guess this is what it is. And we keep repeating that.
Yeah. It becomes comfort. I mean, it's dysfunctional, toxic comfort, but it's comfort.
Yeah, I don't know how comfortable that could be.
We also tend to like repeat patterns, right? We're repeating patterns.
Yeah.
We're drawing in the same of people. We're drawing in the emotion available person. We're drawing in the person that reminds us of our parent. Yeah, and you don't grow in that.
Yeah. So where are you ultimately trying to take people when you're facilitating breath work?
I'm. It's a great question, actually. I like this one. I really want to get people to connect to their intuition. So what breathwork does, when we do a session is you are going to be laying down. I'm just going to take us through the breathwork journey for a second. So you're going to be laying down with an eye mask, and you're going to be doing a breathing pattern, conscious connected breathing pattern to music. And I have a very curated music playlist from everything from like indigenous music to like Rufus the Soul. It just kind of depends what the session is, the intention around the session. But ultimately, when you drop into your body, you are turning off your analytical mind, right? So no more monkey mind, no more mental chatter, no more that voice that's insistently in your head. And you're dropping into that theta state. You're dropping into that calm meditative state where you're able to access the subconscious. And so when you access the subconscious, like we talked about, there are all those limiting beliefs. So we use the breath. We use the breath as a physical experience of releasing those beliefs, releasing those blocks, releasing those suppressed emotions. And you find when it's like quiet in there and all you're doing is following your breath, you're actually also tapped into your intuition. So I'm able to cue you through that experience of like, what is it that you really want? What is your next action step? And those naturally come out. It just intuitively comes intuitively comes up, whether I
Yeah.
need to connect the dots around this thing, whether the next thing for my project, maybe I need to like go have a real conversation with my partner. Those always come up, and what we do is we integrate them at the end of the session. So whatever it came up for my client, they'll journal, we'll talk about it. How are you going to put that into your schedule this week? Because I believe that strategy, you like doing this experience, anything that you do, strategy plus intuition equals excellence.
Yeah. Yeah, like what you said about getting beyond the analytical mind, because like all this conversation has been, people are very boxed in with the logic. They have to say like, oh, this has to be a certain way, and it limits. It's very left brain. It's very,
Yeah.
guys are more like that. But that's the biggest thing when I'm working with men is you have to balance out sort of those right and left brain hemispheres to have more openness and willingness, more creativity to bring it into the structure, right? Because if you're closed off and if you're using very little of your right brain, then you're just stuck at where you're at. You have to have something that
Yeah.
supersedes the limitation, the fear, the
hmm
stuff.
That's cool. And
Yeah.
working with male clients, especially as like a female coach, it's really awesome to see them go through their first session as the first breath work experience and just be like, whoa, like logically it made sense, but like now having had the experience, whoa, let's do this.
Who do you feel like listens to you more, men or women?
Men, I
Yeah, I was
think,
gonna say that.
yeah, it's interesting. Women are way more open to the experience of breath work and just spiritual modalities. So they're
Yeah.
actually easier. It's almost the resistance of men that they know because they are so stressed. They are so burnout. They are having these issues within themselves or companies or relationships. But once they're in, they're in. And I love that because they're invested. They're invested in making themselves better men. And we need more emotionally intelligent, spiritual, superior men in our world today.
Yeah, it's interesting. I attract a lot of very masculine women. It's almost like the men that seek out the women need kind of healing energy from a woman, right? It's a piece that they're almost missing, and vice versa. Like the women that are going to men for healing, they're seeking out like that
Yeah.
more clear type of energy, right? Because there's a lot of distortion, like you were saying. I'm sure a lot of men that are coming to you are very traumatized by women, and the women coming to me have been very traumatized by men. And ultimately, you want to, hermetically, we have masculine and feminine energy inside us, 70% masculine, 30% feminine for a man, and vice versa. And a lot of the times the men have to heal the feminine aspects and the women have to heal the masculine aspects to balance those things out,
I
right?
was actually just talking about to a girlfriend about David Detta. And for me personally, I went through a very, very, very hard breakup 2 years ago and shifted immediately into, because that was like a long-term relationship, into my masculine, doing, having, building my business,
Yeah.
focus on work. They completely shut off that feminine side of myself. So I couldn't even, put myself out there, open myself up to love, date, because I was just about like, I'm cool. I don't need a man, like very in that energy. So David Detta, reading his books, yeah,
That was a way of
the Way
superior
of
man.
Superior Man, Finding God Through Sex. There's like he covers that entire like masculine, the polarity of masculine and feminine, and it was very helpful in helping me shift into my feminine essence. Be just being really in my divine feminine that helped me attract the right partner, helped me be really really actually flow better in my relationships because I wasn't having to show up like this is the strict way to do breath work, but it was like no, just coming in and flowing and healing, just like the feminine.
Yeah, I see a lot of like the really hyper masculine women. It's not that they want to, the ones that I work with, they want the very feminine parts of life. They just don't, they just resort to this like fear state and they're like, okay, well, if I'm hyper successful, then I'll do all those things. Or like, I can't depend on guys, so I'll
Mhm.
do all those things. And unfortunately, I see it all the time. You see it all over social media. People look at the majority and say, okay, well, the majority is this way. Biology says we have to be this way. They always look at the negative stuff first, unfortunately. They're not looking at like maybe it's 20% of people that are actually like good doing the thing. So it's getting them to get out of that opinion of like most guys are this, most women are that, whatever, and having them focus on the good and develop the good. And then there's a big level of trust they need to develop as well to surrender to that. So they're allowing that thing to come in.
100%.
Right. Because if you're, if you're looking at, okay, most people suck. I mean, that's not that they suck, but most people are very misled and they're led by fear and limitation. So you can't look at those people and say, hey, that's life. And most people do. They look at the majority and say, oh, most people are like this. So they try to build walls to protect themselves to still be able to engage with those people. I'm like, well, forget about those people. Focus on the good people.
Yeah.
Connect with the good people that are able to uplift you and heal you and have more joy and fulfillment.
Definitely. Don't close your heart. I think that's a big one of it. It's like you close your heart, you let ego and fear lead. Like how will you bring in love? Or how it will be difficult to even love yourself at that state. And that's where it all starts, right? The foundation is self-love.
What are some big takeaways from like David Guetta's stuff that you like that clicked for you that made some
So it's
shifts?
interesting as a woman reading The Way of the Superior Man because it gives you the insight of like
what a guy's trying to do.
What exactly? I'm like, what are guys trying to do? Exactly. And not realizing like
Yeah.
all the different things that men kind of deal with on their own, like with the father wound, right? And that's a premise of his book as well. Like, you don't have to be your father. Like surrounding yourself with ego men. Like it's very easy to just date multiple women to have the casual relationships. A real man, superior man, shows up and wants to create that with his future wife, his future partner. There's a bunch of other things I'm like not remembering, but it's a great book. I think I remember posting it and being like, if you read this, we can date.
Yeah, it's really good. It's we have a class in the mystery school. It's called Hermetic Communication, but it's understanding masculine and feminine energy. There's like the physical level, there's the mental level, the physical level, like biological, mental, and spiritual level, right? So spiritual obviously supersedes anything, but it's like what is the purpose of masculine energy? What is the purpose of feminine energy? And how do we heal and how do we weave those into our lives? And I always say men try to get women to think like men and women try to get men to think like women. And you're better off just, I don't claim to teach women how to be a better woman. I don't walk in those shoes, right? But I can teach men how to get along and, have better relationships with women, right? And then once you understand the function of somebody, then you can actually harmonize and work together. And you're not trying to fight and you're trying to, change them. And one of the things I tell people in relationships, I'm like, well, if you're in an intimate relationship or a very close friendship or family, and somebody's saying, hey, do this, do that. And a lot of people feel attacked when people are trying to help them. I'm like, it's not that they're wrong. Just figure out how you can both be right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Like if you're in a very loving relationship and your partner is always bringing something up and you feel like they're kind of pressing something, right? You're annoyed by it. It's not that they're not saying it because they're trying to be mean. They hate you. They're saying it because they love you, but there's something you're not seeing. So it's like, how can you take that and sit with it and figure out that balance and how that works together,
It's like, do you want?
Yeah, I think. What's that?
What is that phrase? It's actually not right, but it's like, do you want to be right or do you want to be in a relationship? And you don't have to pick either side, but it's just like a funny thing. And I agree. No, I totally agree. Like you find yourself in these loops of like within relationships. If you're trying to do that, if you're trying to be either the super masculine or the super feminine, you're always going to be in this like defend attack kind of communication, right? That's what I found.
Yeah, it's yeah, I think more people. That's a lot of social media now. Anything that goes good on social media now is like relationships.
Yeah.
Because everyone's struggling in relationships right now. There's so much miscommunication with like guys, especially. You mentioned the thing about multiple women and everything. It's like guys have, if you go to the default of like what guys are biologically wired to do. Yes, guys are biologically wired. They have the ability to have many women if they want to. But I've never seen a successful guy have multiple women. And they use that as an excuse and it gets them stuck because, if you see those guys and observe their lives, there's no commitment. They have some success, but it doesn't go super far, right? It's like the guy that can commit to his purpose, commit to his family, commit to serving, that guy ultimately has the most fulfillment, does the best. If you look at any quality leader throughout history has had those pieces. It's like number one, commitment to his purpose, commitment to who he's with, has a family, is able to serve a massive amount of people. So I think for women, that's what you said. It's like women should read that book, because once you understand that, you can be like, oh, okay, that's what he's doing, and you can support it. And, if men understand what women are trying to do, they can fulfill, help, support their mission as well, their goals.
Yeah. It's a great book, obviously. Like he's a great teacher.
Yeah, that's cool. What do you think? Do a lot of guys now, with my people, as they heal, they're more inspired to, have better relationships, get married, kids, or they're focused on bigger parts of life? Is that something that comes up with your people as
You
well?
just cut out. Sorry.
Is that back?
I cut out.
Oh, I said, as people, what I've noticed, as people heal, they're more inspired to do those things. A lot of people, when they're coming with the wounds, say, oh, no, I can't have a relationship. I don't want this. I don't want that. But as those pieces start coming back together, then they're like, oh, yeah, now I do want like a good relationship. Now I do want a family. Now I do want kids.
Yeah.
Now it's what was once, what they thought was impossible is now possible, because it's those baby steps,
Yeah, and again, you're also cultivating the foundation is self-love now. I think that's really pivotal to this, because you're like, now I love myself. I love myself enough that anybody, honestly, at this point, is going to just be an addition. It's just going to be like, make what I have already better, right? I love Osho. Osho says, two people falling, it's a paradox. It's like two people falling in love actually diminishes the relationship. We want to be rising in love, and we do that by being independent people. We do that by our purpose
Yeah.
being in our service, and then you come together, and then it's a beautiful thing. So it's a paradox, but it works. It's true.
Well, it's having something like, once you, like we were saying before, relationships, you have to offer value, right? So if you are fulfilled and you have the self-love, you can actually take that and share with somebody else, right? When you're unhealed, you're going to be pulling on the relationship, right? So the first relationship is the self. That's why I say it's like the first relationship is with the self, then with God, then with others, right? Having a relationship with yourself, obviously, or with God, obviously helps a relationship with yourself, but that's what it is. So it's like, heal the pieces. Don't totally disengage with life, but focus on healing yourself first. And then, because a lot of relationships, people get in relationships just to fill voids, and they start pulling on each other, right? They say, hey, you have to take care of this, and
Yeah.
because they don't think they can do it themselves. But I like what you said with like the Osho quote, but two healed people are going to come together and elevate each other, right? There's no dragging each other down. It's, hey, how can we help each other fulfill the purpose? And I think a lot of people don't see that or respect that, and that's why a lot of relationships fall apart. I get asked all the time, they're like, well, what's the purpose of a relationship? I'm like, what do you think a purpose of a relationship is? And they're like, I don't know. And I was like, you're supposed to make each other better.
100%.
You're supposed to, you guys together, a relationship creates God, right? You guys coming together creates God. And what is God capable to do? And it's like plenty of things,
Yeah.
right? It's way more powerful together. Well, that's whether that's like a marriage or even a business partnership. People definitely are missing that understanding of like why, because if you're not doing that, there really is no purpose to a relationship. If it's just purely entertainment, then it's like, well, okay, you can do that with anybody.
Exactly. I find that one of the most important aspects of a relationship, a healthy relationship, a relationship of service, is that shared sense of creation, right? Like, what are you creating together? Whether, again, it's a family, whether it's a business, but what are you putting out there into the world that's going to make everyone better? I found that very important, partner.
Yeah, it's like everything has to progress, right? So it's like the number, if somebody's stuck, they need to understand, hey, what I'm doing, what I'm building, my relationship, every single thing that we do has to contribute to progression in
Right.
some way, because like that's who we are, right? We're from God. We're creating the image of God. So it's like, I had Keaton Hoskins on the podcast a few weeks ago, and I think we just solved everything in the first 5 minutes. But he's like, I don't know if you're like religious or anything, but there's a lot of like, it splits people, because there's some religious people that are like, oh no, we can never reach those high divine levels, and then there's some people that are like, yeah, it's possible. I believe it's possible. And it's like, we're here to learn how to become godlike in our own essence, because we're totally responsible for everything we create, right? So if we don't see that, we don't understand that, then our creation is very limited.
Yeah, it's blocked.
And it's blocked. Is like, to me, it's like, if that's our highest potential, become like gods in our own way, then there is no limitation. It's just a matter of how much do I want to put into that thing, right? It's like your relationship. When people are asking like, what's the point of purpose of a relationship? It's like to bring you to those higher levels so you can continuously grow and progress. So if you don't understand, like, if you see like, hey, I'm Michael and these are my limitations, I'm like, it's a pretty miserable existence.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate because it's like you can do so much better. I had somebody, I think 2 months ago, he was like, "Oh, I know my destiny. This is what it is." And it was all limitations. And I'm like, "What do you mean it's your destiny?" It's like you're choosing that. Just because you don't think it's possible, you're still choosing all your limitations, all your crap. I'm like, it's like kind of like you can lead a horse to water, but
And it's
that's the
one choice. One choice can change your life, just to progress, to let go of the limitations, to find the modalities, the teachers, the community that's going to help you move through that. It's a choice.
Yeah, right. It's all the years of spiritual studying and training. It's like it comes back to like, hey, you're either going to do it or not. It's all a choice, right? These tools are not there to. Tools are very powerful tools, but like you can have the most powerful tool like sitting right here in your hand and choose not to use it. I was talking to somebody the other day. It was, what's the difference between me and like a famous painter? We have the same tools, but it's just how we choose to develop that sense, right? And yeah, it's just some people just don't. That's the most unfortunate part about being somebody of service is like seeing somebody, seeing their potential, knowing what their
Yeah,
potential is,
definitely.
and then being like, nah,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it.
Their objections are like, the objections are very surface level again. Like, oh, it's not the right time. Oh, it's too expensive. Oh, my partner doesn't want me to do it. And you find like, what are the root objections? It's all those limitations that they put on themselves. Those limitations, those limiting beliefs. So
Yeah, your partner doesn't want you to grow. You're not motivated enough.
yeah,
It's like
yeah. It's frustrating. It's
you should have the
frustrating for
partner.
us. We're like, no, I can help you. You're so close.
Just have the partner. Yeah, that's the crazy part. Just have the partner go on the call and be like, hey, do you
And they've
want,
done that.
do you want this person?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah, of course. She's in. Like, don't you love your person enough? Why don't you come in? Don't you want to be part of this journey? It's and
Yeah.
it's always women and their husbands. I've never seen it the other way.
What do you mean? Like
It's always a
the
woman,
woman's worried about
the
it?
woman, the client that's like, my husband. It's he doesn't think I should do this, and so it is like,
Well, some people are worried about I see that all the time. People are worried about their partner outgrowing them because it triggers
yeah,
a fear.
yep,
They're like, oh, if my partner grows, they're going to leave me or whatever, because the person realizes like, oh, if they grow, I have to grow as well too. So then they try to, I've seen, it's not kind of set in stone, but there's different realities I've seen of like one person grows and the relationship falls apart, or one person grows and inspires the other person, then they grow
yes,
together,
and that's
right? Ultimately growing together is most ideal.
mhm.
But I see kind of the fear of like, oh, if I grow, then I'm gonna have to let go of this person.
Because a lot of it is
You
like
know?
focusing on self. You do have to focus on yourself first to heal. It's like almost the secondary part of that is the relationship. I actually tailor my month program like that. It's self-love, and then it's relationship clarity. And that's where we like dive into attachment styles. That's kind of when you bring in your partner, like, what is it? How do we what are our attachment styles with each other? How do we trigger each other? How are we helping each other grow? But first is the self. It always comes back to that.
Yeah. I think it's much easier if you have an understanding of where you're going. I think that's the biggest box to check in a relationship is having a shared understanding of why we're doing what we're doing, where we're going, because then it's like, it's like a business plan. I say it's like what the spiritual path is as well too. It's very similar to a business plan or a health program. It's like an understanding of the goal. Then you fill in the space, like fill in
Yeah.
the steps of how to get there.
Yeah. Through
But if you have a relationship and you're saying like, hey, I just want to be entertained, the other person's like, hey, I want to self-actualize and reach my
yeah,
highest self and serve others and really put myself out there. And yeah, it's probably not going to last
not
too
gonna
long.
last. It's gonna be a battle.
Yeah. What are some personal check boxes for you for a relationship?
Like I mentioned, shared sense of creation. I love having somebody who is on the path with me with spirituality, waking up and doing breath work with me, turning to breath work for conflict. Trust is a big one. I am somebody who really values just thoughtfulness. So I love all the love languages, and just a person that is kind. There's others, I'm sure, but like, and then really someone who is able to balance the masculine and the feminine. I'm very much in my feminine essence, so it's nice to have somebody who's balanced and has the polarity of those two. And yeah, just and
What
laughing,
would you say?
laughing all the time.
Yeah, enjoy life, right? It doesn't have to be so serious. What would you say for what are some feminine aspects that you think are very important for either men to understand
Mm.
or maybe women that are trying to get back into their feminine?
One of the things that I found, I think one of the core wounds for both sides in the masculine, it's that they're not enough. I've seen that a lot, especially in clients, that it's like the imposter syndrome or just the limiting belief, but into that relationship, they find themselves
Like
comparing like
worthiness.
worthiness exactly to like other men.
Yeah.
And then with women, it's that we're too much. Like, oh, we're too dramatic. Our emotions are too big. And so when either side can start to understand that about the other, they can really begin to hold this space. And also understanding comfort and solution in relationships. Men tend to want to fix. That's just generally like what men want to do. When a lot of times women just want to be heard. We just want to be seen. We just want that hug. We just want our partner to be open to understanding what we're going through without having to fix it, you know?
That's funny. Yeah. That's one of the main misunderstandings. I tell guys all the time, like, hey, the reason you got to understand, like, women have that superpower to see very broad and like see beyond your stuff, because like women are connected more spiritually than guys are. We're connected here. That's why guys want to fix things here. Because guys get frustrated all the time. They're like, well, she just complained about our day and I was trying to fix everything and she got mad at me.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was
That's
like,
that's very funny.
I, I was like, yeah, I was like, do this. Just listen for
Mhm.
like 5 or 10 minutes. And when she's done, just give her a hug and be like, hey, do you need help with any of that? And if she does actually need help with it, she'll tell
Yeah.
you. If she doesn't, then you're good.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about that.
One of the most powerful solution oriented statements in my relationship has always been from either side, how can I support you? Just that statement, how can I support you? Because then your partner's going to tell you. Like women also, some women, and I think on some level want to be like, we just want him to read my mind, but you also have to be understanding of like the masculine does want to fix everything.
Guys can't read your
Guys
mind.
cannot
Yeah.
read your
It's
mind.
just, no. That's what like a woman could. So women are, I mean, everyone's intuitive and everyone has their spiritual senses, but women are able to do that better than
Mhm.
guys for a reason. So yeah, when they're expecting like, oh, well, he should have
Mhm.
known. It's like, no, he's not going to, you have to like, guys have like a single track mind. Women are like a supercomputer. So you literally have to be like, hey, I want you to do this thing. And the guy be like, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
it really is that
Yeah.
simple. Okay. And they want to help. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, we're very task oriented, like you said. So it's like, if you're very clear, this is why understanding like masculine and feminine energy is extremely important, because yeah, there's kind of like assumptions or expectations that like, like I said before, it's like everyone has a good intention. They want to do the right thing. It's just, how do you meet in the middle and understand each other? How do you communicate properly? And here, the tree of life behind me. This is what side is that? That is Hode. That's for like trust and communication. This is Netsock. That's emotion and creativity. So if you're too emotional, you can't, get into the. If you're too emotional, you can't communicate. If you can't communicate, you can't come together. And this is the Yesod. It's kind of the coming together, so things get manifested. If I see people get stuck there all the time, is maybe the women or the guys, if a guy's like frustrated or anger, the woman's spewing like too much emotion, then there's all this cloudy. What did I read? I gotta pull it up. There's too much cloudiness, and then you can't communicate the truth
Mhm.
of like what actually needs to be solved. If you can't communicate, you can't
Yeah.
commune. Can't commune, you can't create.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that a lot.
What I saw this from a book this morning. Oh, you can never become a great man or woman until you have overcome anxiety, worry, and fear. It's impossible for an anxious person, a worried one, or a fearful one to perceive truth. All things are distorted, thrown out of their proper relations by such mental states, and those who are in them cannot read the thoughts of God.
It tracks. That's really good. I like that. What book is that?
Yeah. That's for Walter Wallace, I think his name is, book. Yeah, that's ultimately what you're trying to receive, right? When you're trying to retrieve clarity, who is the clarity coming from, right? It's being in alignment and being clear and not blocked or distorted, so those things can actually come in. The stuff's always coming in. It's like the voice in the back of your head is trying to tell you the truth or tell you the better solution. It's always there, but we default to the negative because it could be the louder one.
Yep.
It could be the easier one. So it's pushing the subconscious, the monkey mind, the stress, the fear to the side, so that good piece can actually come in, that you can actually act on that.
Yeah.
Then it's not that people make things way more difficult than it needs to be,
Like to take
right?
learn the hard way, take the hard road.
I don't know why. I haven't figured that out. But it's like, if I try to get somebody to answer me, I'm like, what's the first thing that came to your mind? Because like that first inkling of something is like that pure understanding of it. And then because when we think about it too much, we start processing the subconscious. Oh, what about this? What
Yep.
about that? And then we're like, oh, well, I'm going to do the thing. And then it never works out. It's like that just knowingness, and understand like where, like I said, what it says in this book is like, when you clear all that stuff, then you can have a direct communication with God. Then you can actually guide yourself and, beyond all the crap.
I think my word for this year is alignment. It is just continuing to do exactly what you're saying to stay in alignment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's for life, though. I don't think it's just for this
Well, I have
year.
to have a word for the year.
Yeah, it's continuously, figuring out those little pieces. It becomes fun. It becomes like a game. Is once you get over a certain level, certain hump of like healing,
Mhm.
you feel like, okay, cool, this is all making sense. I can see things moving forward. Then it becomes a game to like seek out those little pieces. Like, okay, what's that tiny little thing I need to fix or refine or develop that I can have this next like quantum leap? I think that's what life is. Life is a lot of not being perfect, but always seeking perfection to move
Yeah.
ourselves forward.
Yeah, I agree.
I see some people they can get a little too hung up on the healing stuff. They almost identify with that too much, and that becomes another crutch.
Right.
So I like to drip things in
Yeah.
at the right moment.
Yeah. I worry for some people that healing becomes almost like a full-time job, and then they're out here trying all their different modalities, and all the ayahuasca is having its, mainstream moments, and you're not integrating that. It's just another, honestly, like that's like a drug experience. Just like, oh, I felt great in this, and now I just want to keep doing this, and this is my purpose, and it's could not be.
It's chasing another high.
It's chasing another high.
Are you talking about the like ayahuasca or just like healing in general?
I think that's a good question, actually. I think because you can never like
Everything is
it's a
like
good question.
the most important word you said is like integration,
Yeah.
right? So it's like get the piece, apply the
Right.
piece, and then go get more. Don't just get a piece,
Yeah.
get a piece, and then you have all these pieces, and you're like, well, what do I do with this? Right? It's like take it, bite-sized pieces, integrate it, have the experience, because that's going to lead to more questions, more growth, more. I see people this, social media, it's just information, information, information. Then it just builds up all this junk in their mind, and then they're addicted to that feeling next, right?
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the integration piece is massive. Yeah. Doesn't need to be people are really looking to get shaken. I think that's why people get like dip into the vices and stuff, is because they ultimately want to feel something.
Right. And validation, a lot of it is the chasing of the highs and the short-term validation that you get from that stuff. Then when that goes away, then what? Exactly like you said,
Then you're with yourself.
and
Yeah.
then you're yourself.
It's like, who are you when you're by yourself and you're calm and you're meditating and you're doing breath work? It's like, who are you? What stuff comes up? And it's like, that's a good way. Maybe that's a good message. Like the stuff that comes up when you're by yourself, that's probably the stuff you need to work on. That's probably the stuff you need to take to somebody like me or you and say like, hey, when I was just by myself and things were quiet, these were the fears and thoughts and stuff that are coming up. Write that down and start, I think that's the best path to healing, is not, not, a lot of people, they'll distract themselves. They'll be like, hey, well, I don't want to heal my stuff, so I'm going to go and party and do this. They're chasing work, they're chasing entertainment, they're chasing like these things to feel like they're doing something. And like you said, like when it all kind of quiets down, it's like, well, then what?
Yeah.
Right. So that's a good thing, take a notepad out on your phone or whatever, jot some things down, and then go to who you're working with and say, hey, this is what I want to work on. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's much easier to address things directly than it is to kind of put yourself in this. I call it spiritual paralysis.
Oh, I like that. Spiritual. I like that. That's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you do too many things, and like, healing becomes anti-healing.
Yeah.
If you're chasing something, we have I don't know what you can see, the law of polarity, right? You have polarity is the scale of good and bad. So it's like, if it's extreme, it goes back to the other one, right? So too much good can also be bad.
Spiritual paralysis. I'm going to use that.
Paralysis by analysis. That's what it is. Yeah. That's the thing in like business too. People do that in business. They're trying to engage the mind too much. They're trying to figure out all these solutions. It's like when people are in this kind of fear state, they go into this overdrive of trying to figure things out. What we're saying about going up a level, they go in this overdrive of trying to seek out solutions at the same level they're stuck at. And it's like, it's not possible. It's by calming the mind, the breath work. It's like you're able to raise yourself energetically. Then the solution comes in, right? Yeah. Or go do something different. Just move. Don't do more of the same is going to do the same. Like do something different, move your body, get yourself out of that current state. And then the good thing will come in.
Yeah, exactly.
And do you have any upcoming events or anything?
So I'm launching a 3-month program called the Empowered Entrepreneur in March, and that is going to be a group coaching. You can find it on my website, www.impactbreathwork.com. You can follow me on Instagram at impactbreathwork, or at my personal handle is at Katy, KATHYWON. And yeah, it's exciting. And I, of course, just doing the private one-on-one coaching for growth and transformation. And like I said, I love working with entrepreneurs. I like working with high-performing individuals that are creating impact in the world.
Yes, ultimately, I think that's the coolest thing is people helping people.
Yeah, of course, being of service.
Who would have thought, that's something we do naturally. Breathing, it's,
Yeah.
who would have thought
Yes, yes, yes. And you always have
it's
access
a,
to it. You always have access to your breath.
yeah, it's, like I was saying, it's like you can look at breath work and meditation and be like, we already do those things, but it's like you can take it to the next level and create so much more impact. And like like what we said when you were studying with, kind of the Taoist tradition, right? It was really understanding kind of like the science behind the spiritual science, if you'd say, behind it. So it's like, somebody's like, well, I already breathe. Why do you need breathing?
Right.
It's like, well, these are the actual fruits. These are the tangible results you actually get. It goes beyond just
Yep.
that mundane
Yeah.
level. Well, cool.
Yeah.
I think we talked about a lot of stuff:
Yeah.
breath work, relationships, impact, service.
It was great.
Yeah, if anybody's in the Miami area or they want to get more into breath work, check out Kathy's Instagram and get in touch. Cool. Well, thank you.
Yes. Awesome. It's such a pleasure.